Welcome back to Horrible. What's behind door number 1? Could it be an intro? Nope. Just the closet. As maybe dozens and dozens of you know, I go by Longo. And today on Horrible, we are going to break down and attempt to analyze episode 1 and 2 of Slasher Season 4, Flesh and Blood. Created by Aaron Martin, Slasher is, well, exactly what you think it is. It's a slasher movie that is a TV show and doubles as a whodunit. And Season 4 is streaming exclusively on Shudder. Shudder, please sponsor me. The show is just a blast for horror fans. It's got top-notch kills, top-notch gore. All the characters have these fun skeletons in their closet, so naturally, everybody's a suspect. And with new episodes coming out every Thursday, I thought it would be fun if we could collectively try to figure out who the killer is before the season's over. So without further ado, let's get into the breakdown. There is way too much going on in this show for me to break down every scene like beat by beat, so I'm going to summarize the events and mostly just point out things that I thought were really cool or interesting or important to the story. The cold open takes place 25 years in the past, and it ends up being an interesting subversion of the expectations because you would think it's going to be a typical slasher cold open where the guy crawling on the ground being chased is about to get killed, but it actually turns out to be this weird family competition thing, and the scene ends with one of these twins getting kidnapped. So we jump to the present day, and all the members of the family that were in the cold open are now sitting on a dock awaiting a boat. There are also new members of the family, and this tree can get a little confusing, so I'm going to put a poorly drawn graphic up here while I try to explain. Here we have the Galloway family. At the top, Patriarch Spencer, played by the legendary David Cronenberg, and from there we have 3 branches. His first wife, Annette, and they have 2 children, Florence and Seamus. Florence has 3 children, twins Theo and Vincent, Vincent being the kid that was taken in the cold open, and then there's O'Keefe. And then on Seamus' side, his wife Christy and their adopted daughter Afra. So at some point, Annette died, and Spencer remarries Grace, and they have a son, Jaden. Now, you clicked on a breakdown video, obviously spoilers are coming, so here comes one. The third branch is the housekeeper of the Galloways, Bridget. And they have a daughter, Liv, who's not revealed to be part of the Galloway family till later. Did you get all that? Me neither. So a guy named Merrill picks them up in the boat, and they sail away to the Galloway estate. This family is loaded rich. Spencer's some kind of shipping company president or something. I don't know. They got a lot of money. They have their family greeting outside of the house, and they offer Merrill to come in and do whatever, and he's like, no, I'm gonna go the fish are biting, I'm gonna go do fishing and all that stuff. Foreshadowing. As it turns out, he's actually having an affair with Grace, and that makes me wonder if Jaden's actually Spencer's son. So they have sex in the boat shack, and somehow Afra's in there and she sees it. So after that, Merrill ends up being the first to go. He gets gutted like a fish. Literally is the kill. It's so good. It's so gory, the effects are top notch, and it's brutal. Whoever the killer is must have in-depth knowledge of the family because the persona he's taking over is that of the gentleman, which is the family ghost that haunts the manor that died of mysterious circumstances in the wine cellar. This scene has nothing really to do with anything, but I found it super funny. Florence does this weird performance art because it's the anniversary of Vincent getting kidnapped, and at the end of it, Spencer just dies laughing. So I have to say, off bat, my favorite character is Florence because she's just so ridiculous and outlandish, and she's basically Moira Rose, but without the charm. So everybody's at the table having a nice old meal when Spencer stands up and announces that this is going to be his last weekend on Earth. He has stage 4 lung cancer and is going to go through with assisted suicide. He introduces us to Dr. Persephone Tran. Naturally, everybody flips out and acts like they care. And then he explains that he's going to revitalize the traditional family competition that went away when Vincent got kidnapped 25 years ago. He then explains that the winner of this competition is going to inherit all his money and the business and all of that. Then everybody again flips out and calls him old man and says he's crazy and lays claim to the dollars. Spencer is then laying in his room in bed where Bridget comes in and asks if the competition is open to all descendants. We flash back 25 years again to the cold open, and Spencer is addressing the family talking about the competition. This is the first mention we get of his first wife, Annette. No cause of death is revealed, so that's a little vague. He then quotes Smash Mouth and then gets angry that Theo and Vincent are running around the room ruining his monologue. Bridget tells the twins to run down to the beach and bring her some seashells just to keep them occupied. The problem is this is how Vincent ends up getting kidnapped. Florence actually blames Theo for Vincent's disappearance and wishes that they had taken him instead. Spencer then decides to start his death meds. He instructs Tran to make sure the competition goes according to plan and that he wants to be left alone in his final moments. Then, a little loopy from the meds, he starts to hallucinate a little bit and thinks he sees his first wife Annette walk into the room. They actually cast somebody and you can see her full on, so it makes me think that she's going to be a bit more part of the story than originally led on. But it's obviously not Annette. It's the killer. And the killer walks up to Spencer's IV and injects it with something, I'm going to call it acid because that's what it does. It burns a fucking hole in his chest and he dies as he lived. Fucking heartless. Then we jump to the area of the first competition. Everyone's meeting up. There's someone turned around. No one knows who it is. They think it's Theo. And then Theo comes walking in from the woods with Liv. So they were together. So that's, we're not saying they're suspicious yet. Who is the figure? It's Vincent. He walks up to Theo and he's like, hello, brother. End of episode. Vincent says that Spencer tracked him down about a month ago and didn't tell anybody. So naturally, the entire family, Florence especially, is livid and wants to go talk to Spencer. Tran then tells them that that's not possible. Spencer already started his death meds. He's gone. They charge up to his room only to find his body laying there with covers over it, all nice and neat, no blood. Still, though, you would think there'd be a smell of some sort or something. I don't know. No one notices a damn thing. Jaden then, processing, asks, why didn't you say bye to me? Seamus yells at him for being self-centered and making Spencer's death about him. We then flash back to a scene where Seamus is discussing with Jaden adopting Afra and basically says, I just don't have the money for it. Jaden says, why don't you ask Dad? He's like, Dad won't do it. He cut me off. So there's going to be some backstory where some alcoholism is involved with Seamus. Jaden says he'll talk to him. They'll try to get it figured out. Then there's a really good scene with Theo and Vincent as they reconnect in their old room that hasn't been touched since Vincent was kidnapped. We find out that Vincent, as a kid, was actually obsessed with the gentleman, the family ghost. So that puts a little bit of suspicion on him, but seems kind of like a misdirect. Theo asks him what happened. He basically says he was taken, put a bag over his head, and then was in like a basement type thing for a couple weeks, and then was given to what he considers his mom and dad and his family. He basically forgot all his past. So then we get to the first challenge of the competition. And this is where the show takes an interesting vibe change because it starts to feel like Ready or Not mixed with Survivor mixed with a slasher movie, and I fucking love it. They all have to sit there and hang from a rope until someone falls off. There is no winner, there's only a loser. As they say, Spencer loved to point out failure. Spencer was a sociopath. And to make it difficult, they put spike mats under everybody, and it's really cold, so their hands are going to go numb very fast. Right before the challenge starts, Liv is revealed to be a member of the family, and it's handled kind of clunkily. It's a little awkward. Competition starts, and as soon as we get a little bit into it, Seamus starts trying to mess with Jaden's mind. Starts calling him a puppet. A flashback to a scene where Jaden is talking to Spencer, trying to get him to help Seamus with the money for the adoption. Spencer basically trying to work Jaden up into a similar sociopath so that he can run the family business is like, you don't just do nice things for people for no reason. You need to get something out of it. You need to get his seat on the table of the business. There are no rules in this competition. So Seamus starts swinging towards Jaden like he's going to kick him off. He's acting like a nut job. It's a really good performance. And Seamus totally pulls a 180 and is telling Tran to get Jaden a jacket so everything is fair and equal. And he's like, nah, I'll give you mine. And he takes it off and he starts trying to swing it to him. And he's like, come closer, get it. And right as Jaden goes to do it, he pulls it from him. He falls into the spike pit and he's fucked up. Seamus is all stoked off his little hustle and is like, come on, Christy, let's go. And she is disgusted by the way he acted and is trying to patch Jaden up. We have another quick flashback to Seamus and Jaden angrily discussing that Seamus needs to give Jaden his seat in order to get the money for the adoption. Cut back, and we are with Christy, Jaden, and Grace, and they're going to the Fallout Shelter to get medical supplies. The passcode has been changed, and then Christy sees the gentleman over in the woods and is like, what are you doing here? She goes to approach him like an idiot, gets her arm sliced, and then a chase ensues. Jaden intervenes to save Grace, and then becomes the object of the killer's attention. He runs, he hides in the boathouse, he steps on Meryl's guts, and then gets knocked out. The rest of the family is alerted, and they form a search party with a bunch of goofy old rich people weapons, like a croquet mallet, a badminton racket, and an old-timey tennis racket. Oh, and Afra has a fireplace brush They find Jaden in the boathouse, all 4 of his limbs tied to spool motors, I believe is what they are. One more flashback to Spencer saying how proud he is of Jaden for being so cutthroat and that the world is going to pull you from every direction, that you got to be strong. We then cut back and the spool motors limb by limb rip him apart, and it is gory as all hell. Blood squirts everywhere. Grace is crying her eyes out and the episode ends. Holy fuck. So yeah, so far I am absolutely loving this season. Great symbolic kills, as is the formula for this show. The storyline's real interesting. I love the setting. Everyone's got a motivation so far, although I do believe we can rule out Grace and Christy as suspects, considering they were involved in the chase in the woods. It's a little too early for me to formulate an official guess as to who I think the killer is, and I don't really want to get into a breakdown of motivations until I have one more episode of information. Remember, everyone, we're a team on this. We need to work together. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your clues that you noticed. Give me some theories. And if you don't, that's horrible.